You ever get that weird feeling that maybe, just maybe, when a new organization takes over something you love, that, they might get in a little over their heads, they might try to do a little too much, and maybe, just maybe, their heart isn't in the right place? Like maybe they're worried about merchandising or, something crazy like making money off a very valuable franchise, and maybe, just maybe, that's going to take away from your, enjoyment. Well, that's a thing. Oh, you thought we were talking about Star Wars. No, 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 friends. We're talking about Pokemon. Stay tuned. What is going on, Gengar Gang? My name is Ryan. This is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to an episode of Card Vault. In today's episode, we'll be speaking about EX Ruby and Sapphire, originally released on June 18th of 2003. So, in today's video, we're going to be covering everything you need to know about the first ever EX expansion and Pokemon's first attempt at Pokemon cards, because for those who don't know, prior to this set, Pokemon actually let Wizards of the Coast manufacture all of their Pokemon cards. So this was Pokemon's first real attempt at really making these cards and distributing them, having seen how successful they had been in the past. So, a little bit about what you need to know. Like I said, this was the first time that Nintendo had tried making Pokemon cards after the trading card game license had been taken away from Wizards of the Coast. Now, what's really cool is that this was also the first expansion set to feature Generation 3, so this was the first time you were seeing Pokemon from the Hoenn region featured in the decks. The prefix EX that you're going to see throughout the next set of videos refers to extra, so they really weren't creative when they went about making up that extra additional thing. It was just meant to be extra, and it was meant to bring in a new dimension for some of the rarer Pokemon cards that would feature a little bit more power. However, in Japan, it was ADV, which meant advanced, and that was because at the same time that the cards were being released, they were prepping for the move to the Game Boy Advance for the video games. So because of that, they were actually forced or thought it a good idea to make it ADV. However, in the English set, like we said, it ended up being EX. Now, what was also interesting about these cards is that they had the e-reader peripheral still in them. So if you notice from the second generation of cards and into the third generation, you were still able to use the e-reader, which is an additional peripheral that you could purchase and use and read your cards. Now, EX Ruby and Sapphire would feature it, and several of the earlier sets would feature it, up to and including EX Hidden Legends. So if you had the card, you could swipe it, and then you'd be able to get the Pokédex entries for all of the different cards that you had purchased. So the other thing of note is that the symbol for this set, which contained 109 cards in English, is a ambiguous gemstone, so that kind of plays to the whole motif of, is it a ruby, is it a sapphire? You really can't tell because it's in black and white, but I thought that was really cool because they were actually very slick with the way that they went about doing that. The booster packs featured in EX Ruby and Sapphire are pretty interesting. So as you can see on screen, all four of them featured pretty prominently Pokemon from the new generation, so they really didn't give much opportunity for first and second gen Pokemon on these packs. And as you can see, there's a little red and blue kind of clash going on, and again, that was with the original intention of sort of really highlighting that Ruby versus Sapphire type of look. What is interesting is that Sceptile, at the time just a starter Pokemon, but would soon end up becoming a fan favorite, is featured pretty prominently, but he is the only starter Pokemon that is featured. In addition to that, you do have a starting route Pokemon in Mightyena, because you would get Poochyena pretty early on. And of course, you also have Manectric and Lairon. Now, when it comes to the value of these sealed packs nowadays, it pretty much varies, right? So we did find quite a few listings on eBay. If you wanted a sealed blister pack, and blister packs are the long packs that hang on shelves individually, you could pick one up for about $155 today. And that's pretty much on par for most sealed Pokemon product from this era. It isn't necessarily outstandingly expensive, and believe you me, there are some sets that are more expensive, but what is good is that it's actually pretty much on the cheap side. I think this is one of those sets that suffers from something called forgettableness syndrome. because there isn't really a card that stands out in this set that you absolutely need to have. So unfortunately, because of that, it ended up being a set that, even though time has been good to it, because you can, sell a $4 pack of cards for 150 bucks, it's not quite as dramatic as some of the other sets where they're far more sought after and far more desired. In addition to that, there are tons of listings on eBay and other sites for these loose booster packs. So as you can see right here, one thing of note is that you should always try to either purchase these from authorized and trustworthy sellers or avoid these entirely. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a market for these cards to be opened up, resealed, tampered with, and weighed, so you really never know what you're getting when you purchase loose booster packs. Just a little public service announcement for everyone. And with that said, let's get started talking about the decks. So there were 2 decks released in EX Ruby and Sapphire, and lo and behold, they are Ruby and Sapphire. So interestingly enough, they're not really that available on the internet. I was able to find one out of stock listing for the Blaziken deck, and at $89.99, I can imagine that when it is back in stock, it will raise in price slightly. In case you're curious why a single blister pack might not be as much as a deck box, in theory you are getting more cards in a deck box, yes, but because you already know what cards are contained in the deck, collectors don't usually seek after them as much. Now, there are some hardcore collectors who will pay some serious money for this stuff. However, these particular decks aren't the oldest, and again, because you already kind of know what's contained within those decks, there's a certain air of mystery that's removed, and it's that combination that typically makes collectors not really seek these out as much as, for example, the loose booster or blister packs. So that's just a little bit of a background on those particular deck boxes. Now next up, and finally but not least, is the booster box. So this is what a booster box looks like. As you can see, they're really focusing on the whole red versus blue theme there, and the fire chicken and the weird nematode thing are featured pretty prominently. It's interesting because there are some times when on the front top of the booster box, it's the pack art Pokemon that'll be featured, but in this particular case, Nintendo chose to put the 2, I guess you could say, mascot Pokemon for the entire set up top there. Later on, when we do other videos like EX Sandstorm, you'll see that the same Pokemon that were on the blisters or the boosters are also on the top of the booster box. However, if you spin that booster box around, you do see the booster pack Pokemon. So you'll see right in the corner, actually, you'll see the Sceptile kind of poking out. Now, what's interesting to note is that sealed booster boxes go for quite a bit of money. In no uncertain terms, the more vintage they get, the higher up in value they can go. And I think for most collectors, you'll know that first edition booster box from the base set go for upwards of $50,000, and you even have Skyridge booster boxes recently selling for $17,000. Unfortunately, like I said, Pokemon EX Ruby and Sapphire suffers a little bit from that forgettableness syndrome, so because of that, it's not a $20,000 booster box. However, I was able to find one recently sold item that was sold in 2018, and this was a factory sealed Ruby and Sapphire booster box, and it sold for $3,995. Now, I'm always an advocate of saying that even though it's sold for that much, you have to also include taxes in the cost of your purchase. So realistically, this box sold somewhere for about $4,300, which is actually pretty impressive. Now, really quickly, I do want to kind of highlight the condition of the box, because that's really important for anyone who's in the market right now looking for a box like this. The box that was sold was actually in really good condition. I really want to point out that there are no tears that I could find in the plastic wrapping of this box based on the pictures, and those corners are very crisp. So those corners, those edges, the plastic wrap, those are the kinds of things that you really want to look for when you're looking at a booster box. And this booster box, dare I say, is in near mint to mint condition. Again, my opinion, but a very good looking booster box right now. Now, what's also really cool and interesting about this particular box is that right now there is another listing. So there is another booster box out there. It is in good condition. However, the price is significantly higher at about $4,500, so about $500 difference. And you can buy it now if you wanted to. One thing to point out is that, again, based on the condition of a booster box, you should be willing to pay more or less. This particular item is in good condition, like the listing says. So I did want to point that out because it is important to sort of look at those types of things. If you're new to the booster box market and you're not necessarily sure about how to look at and assess a little bit of damage, realize that the mintiest boxes that look like they came straight off the store shelf, will sell for the most money. And because booster boxes only have so many things that you can necessarily look at, for example, the edges of the box, the corners of the box, and then any dents or scratches on the plastic wrapping, it's actually pretty severe. So a dent like this one can actually significantly hamper the cost of the listing. So realistically, I think there's a reason that this one hasn't sold yet. I think the price to the damage on the box doesn't necessarily allow for that much flexibility. And again, if someone is willing to make a best offer, it's probably not going to be what this person is expecting for the box. So again, just an opinion, but it is my thought that this box might be there for a little while until either the price comes down or someone who's really desperate for this box chooses to purchase it. But I think especially given that there was a box that sold that was in far better condition for $500 less, I think that you should be looking to pay for this box right around that $4,300 mark. Unfortunately, in the world of Pokemon, people tend to pay attention to eBay selling prices, and because it's sold at about $4,000, if you add on the cost of taxes, I think $4,300 is right where you should be expecting to pay for a EX Ruby and Sapphire booster box in near mint to mint condition. And again, based on that, you can sort of reduce price based on how condition deteriorates over time. Finally but not least is our top 10 cards section. So here we're going to call out the top 10 cards in this set, how much they sell for on average, and just give some basic thoughts on them. Bear in mind that prices are a little volatile, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. First up and foremost, the now fan favorite, Sceptile. So this really cool holographic card. Sceptile's artwork is really, really nicely done. $4.44, so it's an average, but pretty low on the spectrum, but don't forget that some of those cards can go for a lot more than that. In the number 9 spot at $4.71 is Gardevoir, so another really pretty, really nice holographic card. It is another one of those classic Pokemon, and at $4.71, kind of getting up there in price. Our number 8 spot goes to Hitmonchan Px. So this is the first in the set that is pretty high up there in price, as well as being a really cool card because it is one of those really nice EX cards with a really complex holographic pattern going around the edge. At $5.34 listed median, it's a pretty impressive card. For collectors who are PSA graders, everyone laughs at cards like this because they are hilariously difficult to get in the PSA 10 grading scale, and that's just because there's just so much more holographic that can get scratched. Next up is Sneasel, coming in at $5.55. Again, another really cool EX card, another Pokemon from a different generation. So interestingly enough, they did opt to bring in some EX Pokemon cards from different generations. Next up is Electabuzz at $6.03. Really cool artwork on this guy. I really love the way these Pokemon come off looking. Next up is Swampert at $6.81. So I really, really like this Swampert artwork. It's surprising to me that Sceptile, who is I think by far the fan favorite, he's number 10 on this list, but Swampert is, you know, several places above him. I really think it's due to that artwork. That artwork is something else. It is a really cool look at a Swampert, and I think given the fact that these Pokemon were brand new to the Pokemon universe at the time, you know, this was the first set of cards to feature Gen 3, I think it's really awesome because you really had these really cool looking Pokemon, and people really liked them, and this was a really cool first card for Swampert. So all things considered, they did it well, they did it right. Next up on our list of Pokemon cards is the wonderful Lapras EX. So another non-generation Pokemon coming in at $6.86 listed median. Really pretty card. I love that 3D artwork on it. It was really cool. And again, another Pokemon not from that generation, but still pretty high up there. Scyther EX is coming in our number 3 spot at $7.15. It's a really cool card, and I really like how holographic it tends to be. The cool thing was that since there was this e-reader stuff going on as well, you had a lot more space. You'll see later on when we do pack sets like Fire Red and Leaf Green that the prominence of the e-reader strip has gone away, and because of that, there was no longer that much holographic. When you look at these cards compared to those cards, there's so much less, and it's funny because those cards and those sets still have holographic going around the edges, but it's nothing compared to the stuff over here. So in our number 3 spot, Scyther, really good looking card, really cool looking card, and again, another Pokemon from a different generation. Next up at $7.29 is Delcatty. So our second spot on this list actually goes to a Pokemon from the generation, which is nice. And is something that I think is really cool because it's not an EX card, which, you know, I'm going to be very honest, when I started doing these things, I did kind of assume all the most expensive cards were going to be EX cards, but what's cool is that they're not. So this is just a regular holographic rare card, and it is really cool, really nice, really pretty. I love that artwork, and I think it really definitely deserves this spot. And finally, but not least, coming up on the list is Mewtwo Ix at our number 1 spot, coming in at a whopping $20.66 listed median price. So I'll go ahead and say this from now. I assume this card graded will do a lot more than that, but ungraded you'll find that median right about 20 bucks, 21 bucks if you round up. Mewtwo's always been a fan favorite, so it really makes sense that it's going to have some really cool cards, some really memorable looks, and honestly, love that card. It's just really cool. And yeah, guys, thanks again for joining us today. In conclusion, I mean, what can I really say? It was Pokemon's first attempt at Pokemon cards, ironically enough, and I think they did a good job. They brought in a new tactic in the game with the EX Pokemon. They really sort of hustled and tried to make it something new and something interesting. They were all basic Pokemon, but they were all really cool Pokemon, and I think Pokemon that were fan favorites or had something unique about them. So given that it was Pokemon's first attempt, it was Pokemon's first ever EX set of cards, and they still had the e-reader stuff to work with, it's pretty cool. From a collector's perspective, it's not necessarily the rarest set, so unfortunately if you have 6 of these booster boxes in your closet, I don't really think much is going to happen. Of course, that's to say that, you know, they are still worth about $4,000 each in mint condition, but I think by and far you'll find that there are some rarer or more desirable sets, so you might not have as strong a case to make about, you know, how awesome your Pokemon collection is. At the end of the day, these are some really cool, really vintage cards, and there are a lot of people who grew up on the 3rd generation of Pokemon, myself included. So stay tuned for updates, but I really do think that while this set is cool, this set could definitely benefit a little bit more from time. And yeah, guys, that's all for today. Thanks again for joining. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you like what you saw today. This is part of an ongoing series called The Card Vault, so we're really trying to help shed some light and do some research and really help bring to the forefront some of the ideas and concepts behind pricing and looking at what's vintage and looking at condition, all behind Pokemon cards, and all of that's for the benefit of our viewers. So definitely feel free to share this video with anyone who might be interested. Leave a like, leave a comment, feel free to subscribe too. I mean, hey, we got tons of content coming out, so it doesn't hurt. And with that said, thanks guys, we'll talk to you real soon. Next week, more of the same probably, so stay tuned for updates. follow us on Instagram, and we'll talk to you all real soon. Peace.